Good morning, everybody. The Jews, they left the Red Sea and traveled to Mount Sinai to camp. And the plan was for them to spend several months preparing for their journey. You know, we often spend time preparing for the journeys that we want to make. A simple vacation takes time to plan. I remember going on a lengthy vacation one time, and I think I spent more time preparing than I did actually being on the vacation. When we think of preparing for a career or preparing to make a big move across the country, it takes a lot of planning. And following after the directions of God in your life, well, that takes preparation too. Even Jesus spent time preparing on earth. When he was a human, he spent 33 years on the earth, and only the last 3 years of that was in ministry with his disciples. So that leaves 30 years, and well, let's figure that he spent some of that time just growing up from a baby to an adult man. So I'm going to guess that leaves 14 years. He spent 14 years of preparation time for 3 years of ministry. Now then, I got a few things to say about that. First, it took 14 years to prepare, so if it took that long for Jesus, it shouldn't really surprise us if it takes us a while to get prepared for the ministry that God has for us. By the way, this was a problem for those Jews at Mount Sinai. They couldn't even wait 40 days while Moses was up on the mountain having a conversation with God and getting the 10 Commandments. By the time he came back, everything had fallen apart. This was not a patient people. This was not a group that was accustomed to spending time in preparation. And their impatience cost them. So if it takes you a while, it's okay. This is not the same thing, though, as good things come to those who wait. You know, we like to say that. Good things come to those who wait. No. This is quite different than that. This isn't sitting around and waiting for our marching orders. No, we might put it this way. Great things come to those who are called by God, and they put in the work of preparation, no matter how long it takes. That's probably a much better way to think of it. Now, don't be discouraged at the idea that it could take a long time. I mean, we could think about, well, geez, if it took Jesus 14 years to prepare, and, well, I'm no Jesus, so it could take me 50 years to prepare. I suppose so, but don't forget, Jesus was preparing to lay down his life as a sacrifice for the sins of the entire world. That's a bit different than what you're being called to do, to be a living sacrifice and to follow God's directions. I don't think you have to worry about being asked to die for the sins of the world anytime soon. So your preparation time might not be as long as you think. But it really doesn't matter how long it is. Doesn't matter how long it takes. It only matters that you do your part to prepare and not waste your time. Now, back to the Jews. The Jews spent months camped around the mountain. The whole time, God had the people doing preparations. Many detailed preparations. In fact, if you read the whole story, and if you haven't yet, I really want to encourage you to just start in the book of Exodus and read through the book of Deuteronomy, read the entire story, everything that there is about the Exodus from Egypt and slavery all the way to where they're ready to go into the promised land. Read the whole thing. But you'll notice that there are parts of it that get extremely detailed. The preparations that God wanted the people to make before they went out on their journey. The people, despite their tendency towards rebellion and unbelief, finished all the instructions of God. They did all the physical preparations. All the tents were made. All the garments were made. All the jewels were in the right spots. Yet, when it was all said and done, something was missing. They had done all the physical stuff, but they had not done the spiritual preparation they needed to. You know, when I was in seminary years ago, I saw my time there as preparing for a life of ministry. And I knew that the piece of paper I was going to get, the credential that I got from seminary, would be an important physical tool that I would need to get a job in ministry. At that time, 30 years ago, almost everyone in ministry had a seminary degree. You just had to have it. That's not true anymore. And I think the reason this is no longer true is, well, it's because of what I'm about to tell you about my time in seminary. While I was there, I saw my coursework, all the classes I took, those were important. But equally important was getting actual ministry experience in a church, learning from experienced ministers, holding my beliefs and convictions loosely in my hands. And I also had this innate understanding that I needed to draw as close to God as possible during this time. So, that's what I set out to do. Ministry experience. I got a job in a large church under a highly experienced and well-respected minister. And I learned so much from him. Learn from the wisdom of others. Wherever possible, I took courses not from professors who had been at seminary for 40 years, but from experienced ministers who had gone into teaching later in life, but had years of ministry experience. That's what I chose. Or maybe even people who were in full-time ministry right then, but they were teaching a class or two on the side. Because I wanted to learn from the wisdom of experienced ministers. Now, when I went to seminary, I had many convictions, many opinions, beliefs. But I felt like that if they were as good as I thought they were, that they'd be able to stand up against scrutiny, stand up against debate with other students, stand up even from attack from others. So I widely and openly shared all my beliefs and convictions and opinions while on the campus. And I got to see which of those things stood up and which of those things were filled with holes as other seminary students responded to my ideas. And I think this helped me greatly to prepare me for a life of ministry. Personal spirituality? Well, there was a prayer room on the same floor as the room that I lived in my dormitory. It was just 25 feet from my front door of my room. I spent a lot of time in there doing spiritual preparation. Now, I discovered while there preparing for ministry that many people there did not share my ideas about what to do in seminary. It was as if they thought that they knew everything before they got there, and everything they thought was right. They had nothing to learn from professors or experienced ministers, and they really didn't need any experience to hone their skills. Many of these people seemed to be at seminary to prove how good they already were. And as far as the prayer room on my floor, there was only one prayer room on my floor. I almost never had to wait to get in that room. It was empty almost all the time. Anytime I would check, it was free for my use. I was surprised. I was disheartened by all of this. And I shudder to think of what many of these people became once they moved into ministry positions around the world. Because they got their piece of paper from seminary that said they were ready for ministry. And I guess they were when it came to their degree. But had they done their heart work? Were they spiritually prepared for what was to come? And I fear that many of them were not. Don't get me wrong. I met many godly men and women while at Southwestern. But I also met far too many who had just not done their spiritual prep work. And I believe that's why, 30 years later, some churches actually consider it a turnoff if a minister has a seminary degree. And it's certainly not the impressive credential that it used to be when I graduated. And this was what the Jews did. During their time of physical preparation, getting all the things ready, they were not doing the inside work. So when they left for the promised land, they took all their beautiful garments of worship that they had prepared. They took their special meeting tents. They were ready. Even the beautiful, amazing, and powerful Ark of the Covenant was ready. They had it all. But their hearts were still divided. Their core sins were not in check. And as a result, they headed out spiritually unprepared. They had every opportunity to allow their hearts to be changed by the presence of God that was right there around them. But they ultimately resisted God's activity of change in their lives. And their sins followed them all the way to their death. They never got to enter the promised land. Oh, they did get to raise a generation that did get to go into the promised land. That's something. But they didn't get to go in themselves. And it was because they brought their sinful hearts with them on their journey. So, what does this mean for us? Well, sin will follow you if you just leave. You leave out on your journey. Leaving is never the answer. If all you do is leave out on your journey, you'll carry with you the baggage and sinful heart and addictions and way of self-destructing. All of this will come with you when you just leave. All you buy is a little bit of time. Your habits, they'll have to take root in the new place. But they will find you out. And you will end up creating the exact same trap for yourself that you just ran from in the place of preparation. That's what the people of God did. They left the area of preparation around the mountain. And it wasn't long till their sinful ways caught up with them. And they walked right into open rebellion. If you read the whole story, if you've read it, you'll know that they did this over and over and over. Each time, after their moment of rebellion, there would be a returning. And they would head out once again. But they never settled their heart issue. And it followed them just as surely as the pillow of cloud followed them and led them. And then the same thing would happen again. Rebellion would come roaring back. Don't you think If just one time these people had said, Moses, we're going to stay right here until we fix our hearts once and for all. We're not moving till every ounce of rebellion is drawn from our hearts and minds. Can you imagine how that would change the rest of the story if they had done that just one time? Now, before you go shaking your heads in disbelief and judgment at these pathetic so-called people of God, remember, we do the same thing. We, if we're wise, will take the preparation time, but instead we tend to focus on the external and physical things of preparation. Then we set out on our journey, and the sins of our youth follow us. Oh, when we're a teenager, when we're a youth, we think, oh, these things will go away. No way will they last till we're 30. And then all of a sudden we find ourselves 40, 50, 60 years old, and those things are still with us. We go a little time, everything is all right. Then the sin comes roaring back. We go a little while, and the same sin comes back again, and again, and again. It may not be the sin of rebellion like it was with the Jews, but fill in the blank with your deep heart issue and see if the same pattern of returning sin doesn't apply to you as well. If you want to change your life, you have to leave your sin and all that ensnares you. You're going to need help from the very presence of God in your life. You're going to have to hide God's word in your heart. You're going to have to find another Christian to help you, to bear your burden, and to hold you accountable. But you're not going to get it from just simply going to church and reading your Bible every once in a while and saying a little prayer at night. You're going to have to do battle. Discover, if you don't know, what is your heart issue. And I bet most of you do know. You do know. Then dig into these heart issues. Put them before God every day. Read all that the Bible has to say on the subject. Get the wisdom of others, maybe people who have defeated that same sin. Confess specifically to somebody. At all costs, do the spiritual preparation so that when the time comes, you're ready. Filled with the power of God, ready to battle in the ministry to others, ready to seize the moment of impact God has prepared for you. Now here we are. World around us is torn apart, people divided all around us, everyone blaming someone else. No one is taking responsibility for their own actions these days. Isolation is creating, well, it's a petri dish for sin, to be quite honest. We've only met as a church a few times in the last 5 months. But if ever there was an easy-to-see preparation time, we're in the midst of it. It's like a giant worldwide 7th inning stretch. It's like everybody's on recess. A giant opportunity for sin, that's for sure, but a tremendous chance for you to do some spiritual preparation, to get your heart ready for the next season. Those of you who are connected to our church, we're heading into a season of growth, of new ministry, of new open doors to affect the lives of others more profoundly than this church has done in a generation. So what have you done in the last few months to prepare for the promised land that awaits and the journey that we will get to take together? Actually, I have to tell you, I don't care what you have done. There's nothing I or you can do about the past. Your regret and your shame about that is of no value. But from today forward, regardless of the past, starting today and moving forward, it's time to do the spiritual prep work so that you can be a vessel of God's power, a spiritual force for good in the world. We are at the foot of the mountain. Actually, some of us feel more like we're in the middle of the desert, if we're perfectly honest. So, let's do what the Jews never did. Let's put our foot down and say to God, I will not move until my heart problem, this spiritual weakness, this sin is removed from my heart. God, please help me to conquer this in my life. And then let's back that up by doing some serious battle with all the tools that we have in our hands so that we become clean vessels for the Lord's power. If you do that, imagine how that could change your story of your journey to the promised land. Would you pray with me, please? Right there where you are. Just close your eyes for a moment. God, reveal to us all the preparation that we should be making. Show us our hearts. Give us the courage, Lord, to do battle with the spiritual things that hold us back. And I pray this in your name. Amen. So folks, it's time to get busy doing some prep work on the inside. Announcements. The verse of the month. Hey, we're at the end of September already. This month has really flown by for me. September verse of the month is Proverbs 29, verse 25. The fear of man lays a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord is safe. We have other verses from other months that you might want to bone up on so that you have all of these verses in your tool belt of ministry so that you can encourage others with these verses and use them in your own life to fight fear. Church chat on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Just email Justin if you'd like to join us. We'd love to have you there. Next Sunday, back here at 10:30 for our worship set, 11 a.m. for a sermon, and in between we have a short prayer time with Gloria Crowther. All of this is on Facebook Live and on our church Facebook page. So we'd love to have you join us next week. Our next face-to-face service will be the second Sunday of October. That's October 11th, 10:45 a.m. Can't wait to see you there. We love to see you in person. That's just great. So, folks, have a great week. Be safe. God bless you all.